Welcome to another edition of That Time When. Matt Miller with you in Trek Zone's Studio 4. This is the podcast series where I take you through the archive of Trek Zone. Still plenty of stuff to happen in our second season. And with 350 podcasts last year, we're going to have plenty of content to come. These are the podcasts that you might have missed, or maybe you want to catch up on again. I know a lot of people are still catching up on That Time When I met Richard Dean Anderson. Just incredible to think that Time When episode is doing better numbers than the original interview. And of course, I am trying to push people to head over there, and you can do that with this show. There will be a card on the YouTube video for you to click and beam straight over to the full-length interview, because this is just a snippet even of that podcast. So be on the lookout for that. Today we're diving in to that time when I had a look at both sides of the Star Trek rumour mill story. Kowalski and Midnight's Edge beamed in for this one.
This is Trek Zone's That Time When.
This episode was recorded with Tom and Andre at Midnight's Edge before 2019's San Diego Comic-Con and was originally intended to go live at the start of our Vegas or Bust tour. However, their response to the awesome news out of SDCC prompted me to rethink the approach of just providing their voice on my channel to this very controversial topic. But today, in a Trek Zone first, 2 interviews have dropped on our channel at the same time. The first, this one with Midnight's Edge, is the exact edit that was due to be released a month ago, talking about how they gather the rumours and tidbits of information, then present it to the audience. The second, with Kowalski, linked in the video description, provides the other side of the topic. This is not an interrogation. It's a fact-finding mission to learn about the highly valuable Star Trek rumour mill. Welcome to the show. Today, something a little different. Now, there are a few YouTube channels out there focusing on the rumour mills of not just Star Trek, but Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and others. These channels feed off the tidbits of information and dive into the minutiae of what could be happening. One such channel is Midnight's Edge, who've come to my attention for their regular videos on the alleged trouble at Star Trek. While many of their allegations have been disproven, they maintain that they're reporting on what their vetted sources tell them. So I thought I'd bring them on my show to find out about their show and what goes into making their videos. Joining me now from across the world is Tom and Andre from Midnight's Edge. Gentlemen, welcome to Trek Zone, and thanks for a little bit of your time.
Our pleasure. Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, guys, when you're given a story from your sources, what are the steps you take before telling everyone about them, before posting a new video?
Cross-referencing with other sources, because we have multiple sources. Sometimes they say different things. Most of the time they are usually in agreement, and when we have some semblance of a story, when we have something that can be presented, we don't always run to make the videos. We like to wait a little bit, so we have a longer video where we can tell a more complete narrative. That's what we prefer to do. So the first step is learning as much information as we can, cross-referencing between different sources, and then cross-referencing with the information that's already out there. And when we have done that, then we start compiling the next video, beginning with the writing of the script and then the visuals and everything like that.
And that's pretty much with any video, not just Star Trek. I mean, across the board. And that's one thing I think a lot of people forget, is we report on a lot more than just Star Trek, too, as far as that goes.
The Star Trek coverage, of course, is the more controversial, because there's more rumor in that. With many of our other things, there's more information to go on. Either more has been reported to the public, or you have the Sony hack, for instance, which certainly helped with our Spider-Man and Ghostbusters coverage, whereas with Star Trek, it's more inside information and more from different inside sources. And I'd like to stress that there are several of them.
Well, obviously, a lot of your content is dependent on those sources with accurate information. So how well do you trust your sources to not make stuff up?
That depends on the individual source. We received many tips that we don't go with. Because whenever we make a video, there are 10 videos that we could have made, but that we didn't. And there are also many of the claims that have been made that we actually have to tone down in the process, or things that we sit on, but we just want to wait with, because we don't fully see how it fits with the rest. With our sources, we trust the ones that we still keep on using. The ones that we are not able to vet and the information we're not able to cross-reference in the slightest, we don't run with.
Do sources get paid to give Midnight's Edge information, or are they giving it to you for free? How does that initial contact start?
No, we don't pay for any information ever. That's not our policy, or against our policy, or however you want to put it. There's several ways, to have sources. You can either have somebody reach out to you directly. You can know somebody who knows somebody. You can talk to the horse's mouth sometimes. Sometimes they won't talk to you on the record. Sometimes they will.
Usually they won't.
Yeah, usually.
Much of the information that we actually have from names that people would recognize, but that say things off the record and under promise of anonymity. Usually, though, the way that it happens is that the sources reach out to us. The usual motivation is that the source that reach out to us, whether it be on Star Trek, on Marvel Productions, on Sonic the Hedgehog, you name it, and they kind of want the word to get out there, and they can't do it themselves. And then they've seen our earlier coverage and they trust us to, one, be able to get the word out there, and two, not share how we got the word in the process. And then what also tends to happen is that once one source then has sent us a scoop and they're happy with how that's been presented and how basically it's hidden behind general rumors, then typically they will put us in touch with other sources. And more often than not, we also have conversations with these sources. We vet them, we see where they are from, who they are, what they do, how they know what they know. So even if we won't disclose it to the public, we know who the sources are, and we know how they know.
Well, what happens when a rumor or a tip-off that a source gives you doesn't pan out, or it doesn't pay off in a way, and say the opposite comes out? Is there a retraction policy, or is it just, here's what we knew at the time, and this is how we reported it, and we stand by it?
In my recollection, we've only had to do it a few times, because here's the thing, from what I noticed, from what people will say, oh, you were wrong about, is they will pinpoint one little bit about something, like, say, if we got something 80% right and we missed 20% of the accuracy on something. Perfect example would be the whole Nicholas Meyer Khan series. It was reported to us as a series, right? And at the time it was first conceived, it was when Brian Fuller was basically planning on doing a anthology series with Discovery, not just, one series. And that's well documented in many other places. The way we heard it, though, was a series, but when we talked to Nicholas Meyer, we found out it was a trilogy. Now, this trilogy was also supposed to be on CBS All Access, and he called it a mini-series and a trilogy. So there's where, like, certain things it depends on the wording. Sometimes it'll just be various things that are just off slightly. And I think that's where some people are like, oh, they're fake news. And you really just got to say, wait a minute, though. They were 80% right about this in the first place. Same thing with the whole Netflix thing. We were reporting that, and then it came out, a year after in other publications from other places. So it was like, and nobody gave us any credit for that. And the 25% thing, we didn't come up with that. That came from another place, and we can't necessarily go, well, hey, look, that's proof. But, everybody will just dismiss it just as quickly as we try to, say, well, wait, we were right about all this other stuff, but you're pinpointing one little thing that was off. And that's with any reporting. It doesn't always, you can't always be 100% accurate when you're just getting sources that are, either close to somebody or close to the production and aren't always necessarily privy to that information. And there's times where we are careful because we don't know if somebody's trying to plant fake information on us too. So we very rarely run with anything right away.
Yeah, because there have been a few things that we have reported that either didn't turn out or were flat out wrong. It hasn't happened very often, but it has happened. The times when it does happen, we do address it. Either we address it in the next mini documentary. More often than not, though, we will reference it in a live show. How many will see that? That depends entirely, but that's typically where we will address those sort of things and make the corrections. It should be said, though, that of the things that we have said that this is something that is in the making, typically that was the plan at that time, and then it changed because it was either refilmed, reshot. One example would be Christopher Pike's extreme Catholicism, because in the initial version of it, he was very religious. Like, he had to go down and pray before every single decision. Robert Meyer Burnett can even confirm that, yeah, this was the case. However, by the time we reported it and the series came out, they had reshot that because our audiences didn't respond to it. So it was accurate at the time when we reported it, but by the time the series aired, that actually had changed. So that's a typical way where we can get something wrong, where something changes along the way. Other times, something is just plain wrong, and then we admit that. It's very rare, though. What is most commonly the case, though, is that those that have issues with our coverage, they will ascribe claims to us that we have never, ever made. Like, for instance, typically people say that, oh, Midnight's Edge is fake news. They said that Discovery would be cancelled, and it wasn't. No, we actually never, ever said that Discovery would be cancelled. We have laid out eventualities, what's going to happen in this case or in that case, or what might happen then and then. But we have never, ever said this is going to be cancelled. If you go back and you look at our coverage, there's actually very few bold predictions in there. Other typical claims are, for instance, that these are the guys that claimed that Star Trek Beyond would be cancelled and never be released. That's my favorite attack on us, because we hadn't even started our Star Trek coverage before after the release of Star Trek Beyond. So you have many examples of that, where basically straw man arguments are used against us. Invent a claim that we never made. So if people want to call us out on the things that we get wrong, then please, by all means do. But please make sure that we actually made the claim in the first place.